this digitally on a hard disk.
Okay.
Okay, so why don't you describe what happened the night of I guess the hatchet throwing Bunny Man?
Mm-hmm. Well, we were on Guinea Road. I can't remember exactly what time, but it was probably 10:30, 11 o'clock in the evening. We had pulled in to a field, maybe, I don't know, 50 feet. There was a little entrance, like a farmer's road that pulled into the edge of this field, and we had pulled in there, and the the car was running. We were sitting there talking, and I thought I saw a shadow or something like that move, so I locked the door and didn't hear anything, and then all of a sudden the passenger's window just crashed. I felt something hit my foot on the floor. This guy was screaming in the window. It won't do any good to run. You're trespassing. That sort of stuff. I can't remember exactly what he said, but that was the gist of it. And so I just, car was already on. I just dropped it in reverse and hit the accelerator, spun around. He remained in the window. I mean, he was running alongside yelling. And then finally just, we turned around, headed out, and gunned it and went away. Kind of went across a little ditch and everything. And went back to my uncle's house, which was maybe, less than a quarter of a mile away. And so then we woke him up and eventually ended up calling the police. They came out, my uncle and I and my cousin, and a dog. They had a German Shepherd. We went back down the road and looked, and there was no one there. And the police, asked me to describe what this guy looked like, and I said, well, I don't really know exactly what he looked like, but I had the impression that he was wearing a costume, like a bunny costume, a bunny suit. So they kind of looked at me kind of funny, but they took it down. They took it all down. And really, there was not much more to it than that. When we had got back to my uncle's house, I asked Dusty what was it that had come through the window. I felt it hit my foot. She said she didn't know. She didn't know that anything had come through the window, just that it had smashed. And I felt down in by the accelerator, and there was a hatchet down there. So that's obviously what had come through the window. It didn't cut me or anything like that. I just bumped into my leg, and that's what I had felt when he threw it. So we didn't think too much more about it in terms of what to do or anything. But I had, of course, told my uncle, told the police, and told the Air Force, and a couple weeks later, I put it out of my mind. But a couple weeks later, we heard about this incident where this guy, or if it was the same guy, I assume it was, had been seen in Kings Park West when they were building it. Had been chopping on the porch of a house when the night watchman had come across him, and he had a hatchet thrown at him for his troubles, and more or less had heard the same sort of thing about trespassing and those sorts of things. So those are the only two incidences that I know about.
What gave you the impression that he was wearing a bunny suit? Could you describe a little more carefully what you saw?
Well, because it was a white suit. His face was dark. I don't know what. It was darker than the white suit. That's all I know, and it had the two ears sticking out, and that's just the only. That's the impression that I had when he had. I could just see his face framed in the window.
And was he tall, short? Did you get any impression of that? Fat, skinny?
I would say he was average height and probably on the skinny side. Certainly not a heavy guy.
Did you have any idea? Did you learn afterwards? When did you learn that this turned into a big story in this region?
About 2 months ago. I had no idea that anyone paid any attention to it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You didn't know? Okay.
Until you contacted me, or you had contacted the academy and they sent me your name. That was the first I had any clue that it had been there had been anything about that.
Okay, tell me about how the hatchet came to be mounted on a plaque.
Well, my cousin, Sam Elstock, was the one who gave it to me. I don't know which of the two, whether it was Sam or Mike, that had actually done it, but I don't know, it was several years after the incident, 2 or 3 anyway, and we were just together as a family, and they just pulled this thing out, and he had cleaned up the hatchet and had a little thing mounted. He decoupaged one of the newspaper articles and presented it to me as a memento. Like I say, it was 2 or 3 years after the incident, at least. I don't remember exactly when it was.
Have you ever heard about Bunny Man Bridge?
Never.
Okay, let me stop recording for a moment.
Okay.
Let's see, I need to hit, where am I here?
Okay, my name is Dusty Bennett. It's the 11th of February.
All right, so why don't you describe what happened that night?
My husband and I had been at a football game, and on the way home we decided we'd stop and talk. And so we went past my husband's aunt and uncle's house on Guinea Road where we were staying, and pulled over into a field that wasn't too much further from their house. And we were just talking. We were engaged to be married, and we were talking about plans, I think, for the wedding. And it was cold that night. My husband reached the car on to turn the heater on, and then also reached behind me and locked my door. At the time, we didn't think anything of it, but just seconds after that, we saw some kind of a shadow, and I said, "What's that?" And then the next thing we knew, the window on the passenger side of the car was broken. And I screamed and jumped closer to him, and he threw the car into reverse, and right at our window there was a face screaming at us, "It won't do you no good to run. You're trespassing on private property."
So the motor was running?
Yes, I think I remember my husband turning the car on so that we could turn the heater on. He thinks that he never turned it off, but the car was running when we saw the Bunny Man.
Okay, can you describe the face that you saw? And
it was very dark. The night was very dark, and we were, of course, in a field where there were no lights. His face appeared dark to me, but then it also appeared like he had on a white hood of some sort. And later, when we got back to his aunt and uncle's house, and we started thinking about what we saw, I thought in my mind it reminded me of a KKK hood, but it didn't seem to jive with the fact that the face looked dark. And I really couldn't say whether the man was black or white at that point. It just looked dark, and the two didn't seem to go together. So when the police finally did come to his aunt and uncle's house and asked us to describe what we saw, I said that, and my husband interrupted and corrected me and said, "No, it wasn't a pointed hood. It was ears. It was bunny ears. It looked like he was wearing some kind of a rabbit costume." And so, and my husband didn't see the fact that the face was dark either. That wasn't anything that he picked up on.
But it was a very frightening experience.
Very frightening. Very, very frightening. That was back in the days when teenage girls wore a lot of wigs or hair pieces, and I happened to have on a hair piece that caught most of the glass that shattered in our faces. And so that was just real.
And what did you do after that?
Well, we got in. We were in the car. We drove away and got back to the house and woke up his aunt and uncle. And they came out and talked to us for a long time. We were really shook up. And about that time, their children, who were our age, came home from their dates. And we talked about it some more and finally decided we probably should call the police. So we called the police, and they came, and then my husband, my uncle, or his uncle rather, and one of his cousins, I really can't remember if it was Mike or Sam, but one of them went with the police back to the field. Also, they took a dog along, and couldn't find any evidence. I truly don't remember showing the guy the hatchet. That was another thing. When we pulled into his uncle's driveway, Bob said, "What did he throw?" And I had not seen anything come through the window. I just thought he had broken the window and, splattered the glass on me. But I said, "I don't think he threw anything." And Bob said, "Oh, yes, he did." And he leaned down near the accelerator and pulled up the hatchet. And, then I really lost it. But I know I hadn't seen that come through the window. It just crashed. It was just happened so fast.
And how did you come about getting the hatchet mounted on your wall?
Oh, we're Air Force, and my husband's retired now, but we had been overseas for several consecutive assignments, and when we came back to the States in the 80s, we happened to be stationed in D.C., which was the first time we had been near some of that part of the family. And we have a cabin up in West Virginia, our whole family does, and we were up there on kind of a family get-together, and Sam and Mike had still had the hatchet. They had taken it, had it mounted on a plaque, and had one of the articles decoupaged on it, and they kind of brought us out and presented that to us as, I don't know, just a funny gift of one of the funny stories in our family.
And the plaque says, "Your hair-raising experience"?
Yeah, I think that was the headline on the little clip that they put on there. It wasn't something they wrote. That was an article from one of the papers. I think that was the article from the Globe, but I'm not positive. I don't have it here right with me.
The field you were in, was it a cornfield? What sort of field was it?
It was a cornfield. It had been plowed down. It was in the fall, so they had already harvested whatever was growing there, but we always thought it was a cornfield.
Do you have any guesses as to who the Bunny Man might have been?
No clue whatsoever.
A disgruntled property owner, or somebody who was unhappy with the development going on around there?
I don't have any idea. Some Looney Tune.
Okay. All right, well, let me stop here.